You drop your child off at daycare every morning, trusting strangers with your most precious gift. But have you ever wondered what's really happening to your child's developing brain in those hours? You see tantrums at pickup and assume it's normal toddler behavior after a long day. You notice your once chatty child becoming quieter, more withdrawn after starting at their facility. You tell yourself it's just an adjustment period, that all kids go through this phase. But what if these changes aren't just temporary? What if they're reshaping your child's future? You chose this daycare based on location, price, and maybe a quick tour of clean facilities. But you never considered how the emotional climate might be sculpting your child's developing brain architecture. Your instinct tells you something feels off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Today you'll discover why trusting that instinct might be the most important decision you ever make. Harvard researchers have discovered that a child's brain develops faster between birth and age 5 than ever again. During these critical years, over 1 million neural connections form every single second in developing brains. Stanford neuroscientists call this period the neural plasticity window, when environmental experiences permanently shape brain structure. The quality of early relationships literally sculpts the architecture of the developing brain's emotional centers. Cambridge studies reveal that chronic stress in early childhood creates lasting changes in cortisol production patterns. These elevated stress hormones can impair memory formation, emotional regulation, and even physical immune system development. Attachment theory shows that secure relationships with caregivers create resilient neural pathways for lifelong emotional health. Conversely, inconsistent or harsh caregiving can create anxious attachment patterns that persist into adult relationships. Language development research shows children in rich conversational environments develop significantly larger vocabularies and stronger cognitive skills. The difference between high-quality and low-quality early care can mean 30 IQ points by kindergarten entry. Neuroscience reveals that emotional regulation skills formed in early years become the foundation for all future learning. Children who cannot regulate emotions struggle with focus, social connections, and academic performance throughout their educational journey. Mirror neuron research demonstrates how children literally absorb the emotional states of their primary caregivers daily. A stressed, overwhelmed caregiver unconsciously transmits anxiety patterns that become embedded in the child's nervous system. Executive function skills like planning, working memory, and flexible thinking are built through thousands of micro-interactions. Quality daycare providers understand they're not just babysitting. They're literally building young brains every single moment. Poor quality care doesn't just miss opportunities for growth. It actively creates neural patterns of stress and disconnection. The developing brain cannot distinguish between temporary daycare stress and permanent environmental threat during these vulnerable years. This means daily experiences in daycare settings become permanent blueprints for how children expect relationships to work. Understanding this science transforms daycare selection from a convenience choice into a brain development investment decision. The famous still face experiment reveals how quickly infants detect and respond to emotional disconnection from caregivers. In high-quality daycares, children learn emotional co-regulation through consistent, responsive interactions with skilled caregivers throughout days. Poor quality settings often have overwhelmed staff who inadvertently teach children that big emotions are problems to suppress. Consider the brain like a growing garden. Quality care provides rich soil, while poor care creates toxic conditions. Maria, age 3, started at Rainbow Daycare where caregivers noticed her love for building intricate block towers. Instead of redirecting her to group activities, they provided more complex building materials and asked thoughtful questions. This individualized attention activated Maria's spatial reasoning networks and built confidence in her natural problem-solving abilities. Contrast this with Jake's experience at Busy Bee Daycare, where individual interests were seen as disruptive distractions. When Jake showed fascination with insects, staff consistently redirected him to scheduled group activities and circle time. Over months, Jake learned that his natural curiosity was wrong, gradually becoming passive and disengaged from learning. The Abecedarian Project followed children for decades, revealing lasting advantages of high-quality early childhood education programs. Children in quality programs showed higher graduation rates, better employment outcomes, and healthier relationships 30 years later. Quality daycare environments share specific characteristics that create optimal conditions for healthy brain development and emotional growth. Low staff turnover ensures children form secure attachments rather than constantly adapting to new faces and expectations. Small group sizes allow caregivers to notice individual children's emotional states and respond appropriately throughout each day. Rich language environments where caregivers engage in back-and-forth conversations rather than just giving directions build neural pathways. Emotional validation teaches children that feelings are acceptable while still maintaining appropriate boundaries for behavior and safety. Opportunities for child-led exploration allow natural learning interests to drive neural pathway development rather than forced curriculum. Predictable routines create safety for the nervous system, while flexible responses to individual needs prevent rigid conformity. These elements work together like ingredients in a recipe, creating conditions where young brains naturally thrive and flourish. Now you understand why your child's behavior changes might signal more than temporary adjustment to daycare. You can observe whether your child's curiosity is growing or diminishing during their time in care. Notice if they're developing emotional vocabulary or becoming more reactive and difficult to soothe after daycare. Pay attention to whether they seem genuinely excited about their caregivers or anxious about going daily. Trust your parental instincts. You know your child better than anyone else, including daycare professionals sometimes. When visiting potential daycares, watch how staff interact during unstructured moments rather than formal tour presentations. Ask about staff turnover rates, training in child development, and how they handle children's big emotions daily. Remember that choosing quality care is an investment in your child's neural architecture that will last their lifetime. Your child's developing brain is depending on you to create the safest, most nurturing environment possible during vulnerability. The choice you make today about daycare will echo through every relationship, every challenge, every triumph ahead.